So far in the previous videos, we've created this test repository in GitHub. We've looked at how to make commits. So that's what these separate blobs are here. We've looked at how to create branches. So we've got a branch called development 1 and a branch called development 2 alongside our master branch. We've looked at how to merge the changes between those branches. And specifically, we've looked at how to address conflicts where the same piece of code has been changed in different branches that then need to be merged, for example. So in today's video, we'll basically look at how you deal with making mistakes. We know that when we upload files to GitHub, we go through 3 steps. We first stage those files, we then commit them, and then we push them. So what we're going to do here is look at how you deal with making mistakes in your code between those 3 steps. Okay, so we have a clone of the test repository here. So I'm going to go in, and as we've said before, the first rule is if you're going to make mistakes, and you probably will, particularly if you're anything like me, then don't do it in the master branch. You keep the master branch as a place where you have code that you know works and has been verified, etc. So the first thing I'm going to do is create another branch from master. So we'll just call it, I guess, development 3 to, as I can't think of a better name. And we're going to check out onto development 3. And then as we've seen in the previous videos, if we try and push this, it says, oh, we need to set the upstream branch, and we just follow what GitHub tells us to do. Okay, so now we're in our development branch. So the first thing we'll look at is if you make a mistake before you even get to the staging of the file. Okay, so I'm going to open this file 1, whatever it is, and we're going to enter a load of mistakes, okay, as we all do frequently. Then we close that, and then you might look at your code, and before you've even done anything, you think, oh, I just wish we could just make it back to how it was before, okay? Wish I could just undo everything. So we haven't staged the file at this point. So if I say git status, yeah, it just says you've modified file 1, but it's not staged for a commit. Okay, fair enough. And you think, right, I really wish I hadn't done that. Then we can use checkout. Okay, so if you just say git checkout, and in this case, we're just going to put directly in the name of the file. So it's file1.txt. This is updated 1 path. You say, okay. And what's happened, if you say, we'll do git status again, it says there's nothing to commit, nothing's changed, and actually what's happened is file 1 has reverted back to its original form. Okay, so that's really useful, and it's a really quick way of getting your undoing your changes basically before you've staged anything to be committed. Okay, so now we're going to go back into file 1, make a load of mistakes again, and save it, and we open up Git. And this time we're going to go a little bit further. We're going to say, okay, let's add everything that's updated. And so now we've staged file 1 to be committed. And then at this point, let's imagine that we realize we've made the mistake. So we've realized just a little bit later in the process than we did before. But fortunately, Git's just telling us exactly what to do. So use git restore staged file to unstage. So we just do what it says, really. We just say, okay, git restore staged, and it's file 1. Fine. If we do git status, then we're back to where we are before, where it says file 1 has changed, but now it's just been unstaged. And so now we can just repeat exactly what we did before. We can say, okay, yep, let's git checkout and just for the sake of an example, rather than putting in the explicit file name here, we can say everything that ends with a txt extension, and fine. Okay, once again, we're back to the original file. Okay, so now the best way to demonstrate this next bit. So basically we're going to go all the way and we're going to make a mistake and we're going to push it onto GitHub and then work out what to do about it. Just for kind of ease of demonstration, it's easier if let's say we're first going to add something that we're actually happy with. So I've just typed in line 5, and we're going to say we're going to add that. We're going to commit it and say I don't know, change 1, and push that onto GitHub. Okay, so we've done that, and then we're going to make our mistake. So it'll become clear why I'm doing it in that order in a second. So now we're going to add that, say it's change 2, and now things get a bit more complicated because we've now got our local version of code and the version that's on GitHub, and both of them have got the mistake in them. So we refresh the network graph. We've got our development 3 branch that's heading off, and these different blobs are commits, and this is the one that actually contains the mistake. So one of the things with Git is there's usually about 1 million ways to do things. So all I'm going to do really is show you the way that I sort of prefer. So I think that the best thing to do in this case, if you realize that this commit contains a mistake, is that you go backwards to this commit and you can create a further branch off of that where you can address the errors that you've made. So how do we get back to a previous commit? Well, I'm going to open up Git again, and I'm going to type in git log. Okay, so git log gives quite a detailed description of all the different commits that have happened on this particular branch. But it's quite difficult to look at, so I'm going to press Q to get out of there. So something that's useful to do is actually, in this case, I'm going to say git log, and I think it's 1 line. And then you get a more concise list of all the commits that have been made. So we can see, for example, change 1 and change 2 that we made just now. And sometimes if you have lots and lots of commits, which you will do eventually, then perhaps you only want to look at the previous 3, for example. So if you want to do that, you can say git log 1 line and then n, and in this case let's just say 3, and it shows us the previous 3 commits. So that's fine. What we want to do is we need to get back to change 1. So we need to get back to here, and you can see that each one of these commits has like a code associated with it. So that's what we're going to use to get back to our previous commit. So now we're going to go back to this commit using checkout again. So it's, in this case, we say git checkout to, and then just put in the name of this commit. So in this case, it's BA0 DD5. Okay, so now we've moved back to this point. But we get this message that says we're in detached head state. Okay, so all that means really is that we're currently not at the head of this branch. We're not at the tip of this branch. It's probably a better way to put it. So we can't necessarily push changes onto here from this point. What we can do is we can create a branch from here and then proceed. So first thing to do is we'll just double check that we have indeed gone back to the previous version of the code. We have, because it's got line 5, but it doesn't have the mistakes. And so now we can go ahead and just create a new branch from this point. So this is the usual stuff. We're going to do git branch. We're going to call it, I don't know, dev3 fix. Fine. And then all the usual things. We're going to push it. Oops, but spell things correctly and so on. Ideally. So now we've created a new branch that's going to start from here. Okay. So if I now go back into our file and we do something that's actually correct, we add line 6, and then we add it and commit it as line 6, I suppose. Then we should be able to see that we have now, after change 1, we've now created a new branch that's left off from that point with our fix for development 3. So now you can go ahead and perhaps you can just delete this branch, or perhaps you want to leave it there in case you want to just go back and check that that really was a mistake, etc., etc. Right, so the final thing I wanted to show you is really, it's kind of personal preference really, and it's about version control. So like I alluded to earlier, there'll be lots of different ways of doing this. Currently our repository does not have a README file, so what I'm going to do is add one through GitHub in this case. It asks what you want to put in it, and what I'm going to do is say, I'm going to type in version 0, let's say, and I'll say that this is the original, or let's say first version of our code. And you can see what it's going to look like. It's going to look like this. Fine. And then you can, through GitHub, you can commit it directly to the master branch if you like, which we'll do this time. That's fine. So now we have this README file, and it's called version 0, and that's on GitHub, but it's not on our kind of local copy of the code. So if we check out onto the master branch and do git pull, then you can see that the README file's been added, and so there it is. And what I'm going to do at this point is I'm actually going to create a branch, but we're never actually going to do anything with it. Basically, it's just going to act as a kind of marker that lets us return to version 0 at any point we want. So I'm going to say, let's make git branch v0, and then the usual stuff. Okay. So now if I refresh this, what we're going to do is, now if I look at the network, it just means we have this branch that's sitting there called version 0. At this point, it's exactly the same as the most up-to-date version of on the master branch, but we're just going to leave it. We're not going to push anything onto this branch. And it means that basically in GitHub, you can see it here. You can just return to version 0 really, really quickly. And likewise, just to see what was in there. And likewise, later on, if you just check out onto this branch, then you'll have access to all the code that was accompanied with version 0 really easily. So just to finish off that example, let's say we make a bit of progress. So we go back into the master and we decide that we are going to bring in the changes from dev3 fix. So we're going to say git merge dev3 fix. and that's our commit message. And then we push that. Okay, so now we look at the network. And so now we've progressed beyond version 0. What I'm going to do now is just update the README file with what's changed, and then we'll create version 1. So I'm on the master branch, and I've opened the README file with whatever text editor. And in this particular case, I'm going to commit directly to the master branch just because I think it's fine. But we are going to say, okay, well, in version 1, we added changes from dev 3 fix, something like that. And then we can push that onto the master branch. So add everything that updated. Going to say we're updating README in this case. And push. Okay, and now I'm going to make another branch that's called version 1. So all the usual stuff here. Okay, done. So now we can see that we have version 0, version 1. If we look at our code, we can see we've got our own record of what changed between the different versions. This is a lot easier to look at than lots and lots of commits. And if something does go wrong, it does help you go back and you can check, okay, well, I think everything started to fall apart after version 1. So what we can do is we can actually just check out back to version 0 if we need to. Or rather, if you're in Git, then what you can do is you can simply say, I'd rather we went back to version 0 and started developing from there again. Then just do checkout to v0, and then you could take a branch from that point, basically. So you don't have to do that, but that's just a way that I found really useful for managing projects and that kind of thing. So I think for now, I'm a little bit bored of doing videos about GitHub, so that'll probably be the last one that I've planned to do. But as always, if you'd like anything doing, then please just get in touch, and I'm happy to do requests and that sort of thing.